I saw this video of someone talking about all of their OCs and the lore behind them, and I was like, I want to do that, but I have a lot of characters, so I'm just gonna do the roommates, and then more than likely that'll take me 4 hours, but I'll probably more than likely get distracted. So I've written down the roommates here. See, this doesn't seem like a lot, now does it? Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's seven characters here. Not a ton when you think about the fact that I have over 300 characters, but we're not going to talk about that. More than likely, I'll also do a part 2 of this where I talk about my current characters that I'm doing. So let's just jump right in. Quickly, let's start with Fred and Lane. They came from a foster home, and from their foster home, in their foster home there was, so we have Evie, short for evening, and Ollie, who are the first two. Oliver, short for Olympic, because they were found without any memories at Olympic View Park in the evening. Original, I know. Then there's James and his sister Lily, and then there's Lex, Tessa, and Xander, and and there's Tom. So, a brief background on them. Fred, not a part of this right now, okay? So, there's just everyone else. So, Lane and Lex used to do heists together, and, yeah, James and Evie were dating. Lex ended up dating Tom. Tom became a famous songwriter. Lily, fuck if I know. Xander became a private investigator because his dad is an asshole, and so he was like, I wanna save people's lives instead of just destroying them. Tessa was severely abused and would use her hair as a curtain for her face. That's pretty much it. They all went with their foster mother, Miss Minerva, to London, where this guy, Robert, was controlling them to get them to steal the crown jewels, obviously. So that's where they met Fred. Sexy Pants Fred. Fred joined them because he was part of that group in London, and he is London, and so he talks like a twink. And then all of them came back. Lex got shot. And yeah, so then Fred and Lane move out of the house. Okay, you know what would make this more fun? Hold on. Okay, sick. I've returned. What I came back with was these dry erase markers. So let's just, they're clickable. I also came back with a thing of wine. It's fake wine. And I figured that every time I got something wrong, I would just drink it. And we'll just see what happens. Not much, because there's no alcohol in this. But, moving on. Okay, Fred and Lane, they move away from everyone that was up here. They go to a different town to go to college together. Lane goes for veterinarianism, and Fred goes doctor. And so they move in somehow with these twins, Pyra and Dylan. Love Pyra and Dylan, and they decide, you know what, let's get a 6-bedroom house, and we'll just because that's cheaper, so we need to find about at least 2 more people to live with us. Okay, so Pyra invites her best friend to live with them. Her best friend is Ember. Okay, love Ember. And then from there, Dylan also invites his best friend to join them. So now Kyle's joined them. And then somehow, somewhere in this mix, they also get a new addition. I don't remember how he got added in. I think, canonly, he heard them talking about needing another roommate in the woods. And he was like, hey guys, I need a place to live. Can I live with you? The same, he joins them. So all of these people are living in the same house, okay? Fred gets a crush. Let's do this for love. Fred gets a crush on Pyra. Lane gets a crush on Ember. Kyle and Sammy, Sammy gets a crush on Kyle. And Dylan balls. Let's do a brief overview of everyone here. You already know Fred and Lane. We love them. Lane, ex-convict. No! Ex-con man. Fred, traumatized and wants to become a doctor. Pyra is super sweet. She mildly traumatized from her mom, but that's about it. She was originally sexually assaulted, but we got rid of that. Pyra no longer sexually assaulted. Dylan is her twin brother, who works 3 jobs, and he is batshit. He loves coffee, and he doesn't love anyone else besides Pyra. Ember is Pyra's best friend. She is a writer, and at some point she writes a fan fiction about Fred and Lane together. Obviously. Kyle, oops. Okay, Kyle is a dancer. He was traumatized by his father, and he's gay. Sammy, severely traumatized. We'll get into that when we get to the Sammy section. And he is a psychologist. He goes to school for psychology. He's a ghost hunter. He is so precious. I love Sammy. So I guess from here we'll just go through each of the characters and explain their lore. And obviously, once again, we'll start with Fred and... I'm stuck. Start with Fred and Pyra. Okay, Fred and Pyra, they ignore the explosion of color behind it. I don't know how to fix that. Fred and Pyra, they're in school. They're falling in love. Their love is super cute. Fred's going to school. Pyra's going to school. They, like, have little study sections together, even though their fields of study are completely different. I think Pyra is some sort of, like, designer or something. I honestly can't remember. This was ages ago. Eons. Like, freshman year of high school. Sophomore year of high school kind of deal. They're really cute. They end up getting married and having at least 3 kids. And they obviously live next door to, Fred. No, that is Fred. They end up living next door to Lane and Ember. Yeah, Fred becomes a doctor. Pyra gets a fancy interior design job, I think. I don't know. They're cute. Let's move on. So now we're moving on to Lane and Ember. Okay, they are also absolutely adorable. These first 2 couples, the cutest ones. I mean, objectively, like, they're the ones with the least amount of problems. Lane and Ember, he also pursues her in a not creepy way. They're, like, really cute. I'm pretty sure that whenever they get together, they're at her parents' place. So he meets her parents before they're together, and then they go on a walk to this field of flowers, and he makes her a little flower crown. And then it's like, do you want to go out with me? And she's like, yeah. Get together. They end up having 5 kids of their own, I think. Eventually. This is, like, hella in the future. They end up having 5 kids of their own. And then there's this other guy, Will, who used to date Ollie, who is his adoptive brother. It's kind of difficult to write upside down. So Will and Ollie, they used to be together. They broke up because Ollie's a twat, and also they were underdeveloped. Will's parents are assholes, and so Will goes to Lane because, you know, Lane's basically like an older brother to him, and he's like, hey, all of me and my 7 siblings need somewhere to live, like, we're moving out kind of deal. He's, like, almost in college at this point, too, and Lane goes, you know what? I'll take you in. Like, we'll take in you guys. So they join them. And then within them, there's 2 sisters, obviously. I genuinely don't remember their names, but one of the sisters has this, like, shit-ass boyfriend, gets pregnant by him, ends up having a miscarriage, and then she falls in love with her best friend who helped her through all of it. Cute, adorable. After they adopt their 7 kids, making the total of their children 11. At some point, Lane's father, his psychotic father, ends up coming back, kidnapping Ember. So Ember ends up being kidnapped. And then it becomes this whole thing with Lane and Finn trying to get her back because, well, you'll see why Finn was included in this. And so, yeah. And then they get her back. Lane, like, beefs it out with his father. I honestly think that's kind of it for these. I, like, feel like I'm missing stuff, but that'll be it for now. Okay, I'm leaving it blank for now because Sam, out of all of our characters, has had the most love interests. So, Sam, we're starting at Sam's backstory. Sam came from a different universe, wherein there was people, there was powers. Sam's backstory is that his father killed his mother, and then the murder went solved for, like, 11 years. 11? Crazy shit. So it went unsolved for 11 years. On the anniversary of the 5th year, they got an anonymous call being like, her body is buried here. So they found the body after 5 years. And then it still went unsolved. And you'll never guess who killed Sam's mother. That's right, Sam's father. Okay, so I wrote us a cheat sheet up here. Mom, dad, father, crazy killer. So Sam moves in with his grandmother and sister. Love them. They're so cute. Sam moves to this place. Okay, Sam moves from, I don't fucking know, somewhere in the south, to this place, okay, called Clover Creek, California. In Clover Creek, there are these things called the Spirit Stones. Blast from the past. Anyways, and so they're people with powers. They primarily live there, but, you know, normal people like Sam also live there. And so they moved to Clover Creek. Sam was deeply traumatized because he was like, I don't know, 6, maybe, when his mom died. And so he was traumatized and was like, especially because her body wasn't found for 5 years. So he would have been 11 when it was found. And then he would have been 17 whenever it was finally solved. Crazy shit. And so Sam, not wanting to believe that his mother is really dead, decided that, hey, she was just abducted by aliens. And so Sam decides, once he moves to Clover Creek, which has all these weird, abnormal experiences, that he is going to start a ghost hunting group. Okay, he moves to this new school and meets his first love interest, Neil. Neil was somehow abused by his nanny because his mom is the mayor, and then his dad is also important. So Neil is rich as fuck. Neil, rich as shit. Neil is also deaf. Cannot hear, like, anything. Because how he was abused by his first nanny. All I really remember of that is that the nanny, like, tackled him, he hit his head on the concrete, boom, couldn't hear anymore. So Neil, rich, whatever. Sam meets him in one of his classes. They get partnered up together for a presentation. Everyone is like, man, Sam, you will regret that. Sam's like, no, I won't. I'm going to fall in love with him instead. Sam ends up learning sign language for Neil. They're together for about 3 years, okay? Not Sam's longest relationship, but they're together for quite a while, 3 whole years. And then Sam ends up moving away to go to college. Also, in this time, he found out who killed his mother. It was his psychopath's father. But, plot twist, his father is not caught. His father also goes and has 2 kids. And these 2 kids, he eventually, I don't really remember much about them, but basically he ends up kidnapping one of them and trying to use her to lure Sam in, even though they've never met Sam. I think they met Sam because they were like, hey, so you know your dad is like Psycho-Pants, right? Yeah, well, he's also our dad, and he's still Psycho-Pants. And so they go to Sam for help. This is also years in the future from where we are with Sam. And then Sam's father is trying to get Sam for some reason. So he kidnaps the girl, takes her, all that jazz. Psycho-Pants' father. Excuse me. Sam and Neil. Sam goes off to college. Okay, Sam leaves, goes to college, which is where he moves in with the roommates. So that's how he ties in. I'm really good at writing in a straight line. This is roommates, by the way. Neil goes batshit, goes like off the rails. He's like, wow, I'll never amount to anything in my life, whatever. And so he like drops all contact with Sam. Sam is devastated at this point. Sam is devastated. Sam also has horrible night terrors and cannot sleep alone at this point. So Sam moves into the same room with Kyle. And he eventually breaks up with Neil because Neil, like, comes back and he's like, I'm so sorry, babe. Like, I really shouldn't have treated you like that, but if it makes you feel better, I treated everyone like that. And Sam's like, you know, I kind of need a boyfriend who's actually gonna, like, be there for me, so I'm sorry, I love you so much, but we're breaking up. And so then Sam then moves in with, well, okay, he was already moved in with, but then he falls in love with, who saw this coming? Certainly not me. He then falls in love with Kyle. They're sharing the same room. Kyle helps him through, like, multiple panic attacks, multiple sleep episodes. It's so sweet, so cute, whatever. Sam also hates dogs because he was attacked by a dog when he was a kid. That comes in important later. So Sam and Kyle are spending time with each other, but Kyle is still deeply in love with his childhood sweetheart. And, you know, we'll get to that. And so he tries to, like, yeah, so they're together for like a little bit. It's nothing official. Probably only lasts about 3 months. They decide, hey, like we're probably better as friends, whatever, and they stay friends. They're just friends that casually did it with each other for quite a bit. But that's it. And so then moving on from Kyle, we then have Hugh or Hugo. Hugh is so sweet. They were probably together for 2 years. This is a 2, swear. Not a 6. It looks like a 6 on that board. Hopefully this isn't all backwards. I actually didn't even think about that. You guys can just be wooed by my amazing voice. Sam and Hugh get together. They met at a grocery store because Sam went to pick something up for Kyle and then dropped it in the parking lot and then started crying because he was having a hard week, and Hugh consoled him and then was like, hey babe, you're really hot, let's get together. And Hugh has a boat and a dog. I love Hugh so much. I love Hugh. He just personally wasn't right for Sam. But they're together for about 2 years. They go on cute like dates where they like sail the ocean and all of that. Hugh also has a dog, which is a golden retriever, and he always like offered to leave him at home, but Sam's in love with him, so he's like, no, like it's fine, you can bring your dog. They're together for a bit. They eventually just decide, this isn't working. I think Hugh was gonna move or something. I'm gonna take a drink because I have no clue if that's accurate or not. Perf. Yeah, so pretty cute. They were adorable. Hugh, I think, goes to move away. Something happens. They have a talk. They're like, hey, like, I love you so much, but I just don't think this is gonna work. Okay? Then I think, hold on. Let me erase things. Also, the roommates are in Oregon, just so that way we can get an understanding of where the roommates are. Anyways, so Sam, once he's done with his degree, he finishes it in 3 years, and he was dating Hugh for 2 of those 3 years, and then he just decides, I feel like an outcast within my friend group. He's not. Everyone loves him, but he's dramatic. He's like, I just broke up with my boyfriend. To be honest, I just want a new beginning. And so instead of, like, getting a new beginning, he just moves back to Cripple Creek for some reason. So this is now the second move to Cripple Creek that he's had. And Clover Creek, not Cripple Creek. So this is the second move back to Clover Creek that he's had, and he stays there for a bit. I'll get to this part eventually when I talk about Dylan. Dylan comes and lives with him for a second. He, like, continues doing psychology. He becomes a therapist, I think, or a counselor of some sort. And then Dylan comes and lives with him for a little bit. He keeps, like, doing ghost hunting things, and then eventually, once, like, everything is solved with, like, Dylan and whatever, he decides, I really do miss my friends. So he moves back, and his next love interest, and the one that he currently still has, and that he'll be with forever, if they break up, I'm going to cry my eyes out. So he is just wandering around one day, and Sam moves into this apartment, and the apartment next to him is currently vacant because the person that was in it had a horrendous car crash, like awful, like on life support. And so sometimes we'll see the family of the guy that used to live next to him and all of that. Also, this sounds very similar to a Mark Ruffalo rom-com that you've seen. I don't want to hear it. Sam moves into an apartment complex next to this, like, kind of vacant one, okay? Sam has now moved back to Oregon. He's like, he walks out one day and sees this guy trying to get into the apartment. He's like, hey, yo, what the fuck? What are you doing? Like, that apartment's vacant. And the guy's like, no, it's not. This is my apartment, but for some reason I can't get in. And, like, anytime he tries to turn the doorknob, his hand just goes right through it, and he can't figure out, like, he just thinks that he's just, like, failing at turning the door. And Sam's like, what if you come inside my apartment? Like, we can chat a bit. And he talks to the guy, Quinn, and figures out that he's the same one that had the horrendous car accident and is currently on life support. So he is now like, cool, so my neighbor, who's hot as fuck, is also a ghost. That's fantastic. I love that. So then Sam, oh wait, let me write that. That's Quinn as a ghost, because he's currently in a coma. So Sam is trying to figure out how this happened and all of that, and Quinn's trying to figure out, what the fuck do you mean I'm dead? And Sam's like, no, you're not dead. You're just not alive because you're in a coma. So your spirit has just detached itself from its body. So they go on cute little ghost dates and fall in love. Sam ends up going to the hospital to visit Quinn, and Quinn has like this massive family, like one of those like he's not, but one of those like mafia families where it's like everyone's living together, or like a Greek family. I think it is actually a Greek family. I'm pretty sure he's Greek. And so Quinn's like going to the hospital to like comfort Quinn and try to get him like back into his body, because Quinn's like very much still functioning. It's just that his body's mostly recovered at this point, and so he's like, well, you know, at this point I could just like get him back in his body and then I could actually make out with him for real and stuff, like kissing a ghost. I don't know. And Quinn's whole family, like the whole massive family, so this is Quinn's whole family. Aren't they so lovely? I'm truly an artist. Sam goes to visit him, but the people are like, hey, like, you can't visit if you don't know the guy. And Sam goes, no, like, we're dating, so, like, it's fine. And so they let him in. And then Quinn's family is like, oh my gosh, you guys are dating? Like, that's so cute. That's so perfect. And Sam goes, yes. And so then he spends this whole thing trying to get Quinn back into his body. He gets Quinn back into his body. Quinn comes back to life. He's now become acquainted with Quinn's whole family because he's been spending all this time with them while he's been visiting Quinn in the hospital. And then they'll like invite him over for dinner and stuff because they're like, we didn't know Quinn was dating anyone. Like, let me get to know you. And he's like, yes, we're dating. I believe it. Quinn comes back to life. They officially get together. They're so cute. Love that. They're now living together. And that's pretty much it for Quinn and Sammy. I've added in all of my details that I need for Kyle and Ari. Objectively, one of my favorite characters, or couples. I have so many, so it's actually so hard to choose. But of this group, them and the Dylan and Finn are so cute. I love them. They're my favorites. And Sam. And, okay, I love all of them, but they're some of my favorites. So, Kyle and Ari. Let's remember that Kyle is Pyra and Dylan's best childhood friend. So, Kyle, we're going all the way back to the beginning, when they're, like, 15. Kyle, is best friends with Finn, Dylan and Pyra, and he, like, basically lives with them because he's a dancer and he has an abusive father, and his father, like, hates him as a drunk, all that, and also hates that he's a dancer. And Kyle's mom was super nice, I think. I don't remember her. She was there for, like, all of 4 seconds. And so, Kyle basically just lives with Dylan and Pyra, and Dylan and Pyra, like, take him in, let him live with them because their mom's a bitch, and also neglectful, so, like, she doesn't realize what's happening. She's just like, oh, cool, Kyle's here again. I'm gonna go back to work. And they, like, pay, because Dylan and Pyra are also rich as fuck, so they also pay for Kyle to go to, like, music lessons, or dance lessons and stuff. He basically lives with them. He meets Ari at a park, because Ari skateboards, too. It's so cute. And Ari, he stole his father. Let's move on to Ari. Ari's father is also abusive, but much worse than Kyle's is. No offense, Kyle. And Ari, his father, Ari has a stutter, and his dad, like, hated it, and so, like, he went into speech therapy for a bit, and then Ari's dad is like, you know what's much more effective than speech therapy? Abuse. So what if I just beat the shit out of him anytime that he stuttered? So because of that, Ari becomes, I don't remember exactly what it's called, but it's basically a voluntary mute, and where he just doesn't talk. He knows sign language. He mostly just signs. Everyone just thinks that he's mute. He can talk, but he has, like, this horrific stutter. Horrible. Your stutter isn't horrific, Ari. On the night of, like, his 15th birthday or something, he, like, did something. Oh, he came out to his father. That's what he did. And his father was like, oh, cool, so you're gay? What if I proved it to you? And Ari's like, what? And then his father assaults him to try to prove that he's not gay, because if he was gay, he would enjoy it. And obviously, you know, you don't enjoy being assaulted. So Ari didn't like that very much. And then his father's like, well, you can't be gay because you didn't like me. Huh? So Ari steals their, like, adventure van and just leaves. Only has his learner's permit and then just leaves. he came from, like, I don't know, Minnesota or something. And so he drives from Minnesota over here all the way up to Oregon. Actually, I think that they're not in Oregon. I don't remember where they are. I did a whole bunch of research on this at one point. He drives to wherever Kyle is, and they, like, meet at a park, and Ari's skateboarding, and Kyle's like, hey, man, like, I've always wanted to learn how to skateboard. Can you teach me? And Ari's like, yeah, sure, why not? I don't see why this would be a problem. And so Ari teaches Kyle how to skateboard, and it's very cute. They, like, meet up at the park all the time, but Ari, you know, doesn't want to draw suspicion to himself because he's a 15-year-old living by himself in a van when he doesn't have his driver's license. And so, he doesn't want to draw suspicion to himself, so he moves. No, he leaves. He'll, like, periodically come back to where Kyle and Kyle and Dylan and Pyra all are, and he'll, like, come back and, like, talk with them, and it's, like, their friendship and relationship blooms over, like, a whole year. Ari disappears for about 6 months. He goes and gets his driver's license. When he comes back, it's New Year's Eve. Ari is invited to their little New Year's party. Kyle has been trying to avoid suspicion of himself being gay. At this point, they're in love, pretty much. They like, talk a whole bunch. They're in love, whatever. And Kyle has been trying to avoid suspicion of being gay, so he'll, like, hit on Pyra and be like, hey, queen, and Pyra's like, okay, cool, like, I could see this working. And so she, on New Year's, once it, like, the first kiss and whatever, she kisses Kyle. Kyle's flabbergasted because his bestie poo, Ari's there. Ari tweaks out because he's, like, madly in love with Kyle. Leaves Kyle this letter being like, hey, like, let me draw this letter. Isn't that such a hot letter? Ari is like, hey, like, I can't do this, like, I'm madly in love with you, you're clearly in love with someone else, here's when I'm planning on being back, like, let's meet at this specific date, whenever I come back, and we can talk again, because, like, I still like you, like, we've been friends for, like, a year and a half now, whatever. Kyle reads the message, is tweaking out, because his best friend and his first love has left because of a misunderstanding with Pyra, and he's like, fuck. And so he waits until Ari comes back on the specified date. Ari comes back on that date. Kyle meets. They fall in love. Now, let's flash forward until they're, like, 18-ish. 16? 17? Kyle's father gets far more abusive. Kyle can no longer just, like, go and stay at Pyra and Dylan's house. He has to, like, leave. Ari comes back into town. Kyle begs him to take him with him. Ari agrees, obviously, because why would you say no? Your first love wants to go road tripping with you across the country and be homeless with you? Sounds perfect. Kyle has learned sign language for Ari. Ari starts talking more. Also, Ari is still severely traumatized with any schmookum time, if you would. And so they have, like, a very, like, cute, wholesome relationship where it's, like, mostly, obviously not all of it on Ari's term, but, like, a lot of it is, since, you know, he's the traumatized one. And so they fall in love, they're adventuring the town together, and then slowly, you know, being stuck in a van with your boyfriend for almost a year, their relationship slowly starts to deteriorate. Kyle has now graduated online high school. Ari just dipped the fuck out of high school. So Kyle is like, hey, like, we're just arguing all the time, like, I don't know what happened to us, we were so good, like, I want you to drop me back off in Oregon, or drop me off in Oregon, because this is where Pyra and Dylan have gone to college. And Ari's like, yeah, like, I think it would be for the best. He drops Kyle off, they break up, and both of them just severely miss the other person, like, so badly. Ari spends about, like, another year road tripping, and then he decides, you know, maybe I should stop being homeless and, like, actually get a job. So he obviously moves to Oregon to be where Kyle is, but he's, like, the town over, so they don't really see each other. But because Kyle is a dancer and Ari plays the violin, Ari joins, like, the local choir. He becomes a Ari joins the local orchestra. He becomes a violin instructor, and that's how he makes his money. And he also works at a flower shop. He's so cute. Kyle also has a brother. I love his brother. This is so not important. This is such a side tangent. Is Milo, who is fairly autistic, loves plants, loves flowers, and he ends up falling in love with this guy, Aja. Milo and Aja end up falling in love and being together, and Aja goes into the military and leaves Milo. So Milo eventually moves in with Kyle and then works at Ari's plant shop. So cute. I'll get to that whenever it happens, actually, in the timeline. Let's move back. Ari is working at a flower shop. One time, Kyle comes in to get flowers for Sam, I would assume. Who the fuck else would he be getting flowers for? He's only dated one other person. And so he sees Ari and he's like, oh shit. Also, Ari, like a month or two ago, he like goes to all of the dance productions because he's like, maybe I'll see Kyle there. And then this one time he does see Kyle. He leaves flowers for Kyle and then just disappears. Doesn't have the heart to talk with Kyle. Duh. Freak ass. So Kyle already has an inkling of suspicion that Ari is in town. Then he goes to get someone flowers, sees Ari and is like, my one true love. They rekindle. They end up like living together again. They end up getting married. It's so cute. Milo and all of that moves in with them. So yeah, that's Kyle and Ari. Okay. So my favorite couple of all time, Finn and Dylan. Let's recap their backstories just so you guys get like an inkling of what's going on. Dylan is the overworked college student who is trying to complete his degree early while also working 2 jobs so that way he can put both him and his sister through college. Pyra's also working, but she doesn't work nearly as much as Dylan. Basically, Dylan is sleep deprived and loves coffee. And then Finn, his backstory has more details to it. Mainly because you've already heard a lot of Dylan's backstory. Dylan also has an evil mother. Her name is Helen. Oh my bitches. All my homies hate Helen. So Finn, his backstory is that he used to be in a gang, obviously. He went out with his brother, and they went to a frozen lake, even though his parents said not to. So his brother, ignore Ida for now. His brother is Lee, and he went out with his brother Lee to a lake, and a frozen lake, because they lived in Minnesota, Wisconsin, or Minnesota. Whichever one has Detroit in it, I think it's one of those. He was in the state that has Detroit in it. He went to a frozen lake with his brother Lee, and he was told not to go by his very loving parents. Also, I started this at 38 minutes, so let's see how long it takes for me to talk about Finn and Dylan. His brother went out to the ice when he wasn't paying attention, fell through the ice, and Finn thought that he died. Lee did not die. Lee ended up getting rescued by Ida. Ida has abusive parents, obvi. And Lee took Ida in. They fell in love, whatever. Okay? End of plot point for Ida and Lee. Finn, traumatized by the fact that he just murdered his brother, goes down to Chicago, and he almost dies his first night there and gets rescued by, how sweet, he gets rescued by a gang member. Specifically, one of the, like, higher-ups in a gang, and the gang member is like, hey, his name is Nathan, and we fucking hate Nathan, okay? Finn gets rescued by this gang member, Nathan. Nathan says, hey, you know, since I saved your life, it's only fair that you come work in my gang until your life debt is repaired. Which will be never, because Finn has to save Nathan, specifically, a higher-up who's, like, 35 in the gang. So that's nearly impossible for Finn to escape. Finn's like, well, fuck. Finn currently just has the clothes on his back, a sketchbook, and a cassette player. Because why wouldn't he? Finn's quirky like that. Finn is like 14 at this time. Finn then spends the rest of his teenage years enslaved to a gang, having to do evil, cruel, corrupt things. And then when he's about 16 or 17, he meets this higher-up named Caesar. And Caesar is the nephew to the gang member, except the rest of his family is dead. And so it's just Caesar and his uncle who are still alive. Okay, so Finn and Caesar partner up, okay? They become besties. Not willingly, because they have to do a mission together, because Finn at this point has rised in the ranks. Finn has now rised in the ranks to be able to work with the, like, fifth in command, because there's like the uncle, this random guy, Nathan, someone else, and then Caesar. So they go on a mission together for an arms deal. The arms deal goes bad, unsurprisingly, and so Finn ends up getting captured, and turns out Finn and Caesar both end up getting captured, and turns out Nathan is a double agent, so he's also been working for another gang, the gang that captured them, and the two of them end up pretty much dead, and Caesar is forced to kill someone that he loves. I think it's his parents, but we already established that his parents are dead, so I don't really remember. Maybe his parents were fake dead. Caesar ends up having to do something evil, and it breaks his spirit, and they're about to kill Caesar, and Nathan is, and Finn's like, please, like, Finn, like, risks life and limb to escape, to try to break Caesar out. He's almost successful, and then Nathan comes and is like, pretty boy, not pretty boy. Nathan comes and is like, don't you dare, homeboy, and Finn is, and recaptures them. Finn is like, please, like, I'll do literally anything to, like, save Caesar's life, and Nathan goes, anything, you say, and then assaults Finn sexually, and carves the gay F slur into his wrist. This it's the entire length of his forearm. It's this whole shebang here. So that whole thing just has the F slur in it. What is wrong with Nathan? Let's not get into that. Fuck Nathan. Finn is like, well, you know what? It was worth it because Caesar made it out alive. Caesar makes it a whole 3 days before he kills himself. He jumps off the roof of a building and kills himself because he can't live with the horrible deed that he's just done. So now Finn was violently assaulted to save Caesar, and then Caesar, his one true love, ended up killing himself. And so Finn's now traumatized. Finn then finds a way to break out of the gang, okay? He's now like 22. Well, he's younger. He's like 19. He breaks out of the gang, moves to Oregon, because, you know, he's not only on the run from the gang, but also the law, because, well, why wouldn't he be? Duh. And so Finn, then, while in Oregon, so Finn's now in Oregon. Okay, Oregon's over here this time. Sorry, y'all. Oregon's over here. Finn's now in Oregon, and he decides, you know, I've spent my whole life in crime. I killed my younger brother, which he didn't. He just thinks he did. I killed my younger brother. I've spent my life in crime. I'm going to become a vigilante, and to repay my sins, my deeds. So Finn becomes a vigilante in Oregon. Dylan is a bouncer at a nightclub, and Finn realizes that this, like, massive drug deal is going to go down there, and, you know, why would he tell the cops that? He's just gonna raw dog it himself. So Finn, in Oregon, goes to the nightclub that Dylan is working at and is being weird, like, very weird, like, Finn, could you not, like, try to blend in a little bit? And so Dylan is like, okay, this man's acting up. He goes and finds Finn. Finn is like, fuck you. Dylan pins him against a wall, and then Finn is like, get the fuck off of me, you don't know what you're stopping. Finn eventually gets away from Dylan. Dylan starts calling him pretty boy. Dylan begins calling him pretty boy, which is so cute. I love Dylan. Finn gets away. He goes to stop the arms deal that's happening. Finn eventually gets away from Dylan, goes to stop the arms deal that's happening in the alleyway, tells Dylan to stay the fuck out of his way. Dylan obviously doesn't listen. So Dylan then goes and follows Finn out to the alleyway. Finn almost secured and, like, stopped the drug deal, and then Dylan comes out. Dylan gets shot, and Finn goes, you dumb fuck. And so then Dylan gets shot, okay? Shot. Dylan gets shot. Finn then takes him back to his apartment and is like, I'll heal you up. They have some sexual tension. They kiss, I think. I don't know. Then the next, like, 5 months is just them hitting on each other, and then they become kind of friends, but Dylan is a mamby-pamby and doesn't want to tell anyone that he's gay. So Finn's also still very quiet and very, like, stoic, because, you know, he was a gang member for, like, half of his life, and so he'll just, like, appear places and just, like, make not a single sound when he arrives, which scares the shit out of Sammy, And so they're very cute. They officially start dating right before Christmas. Dylan and the whole gang, all of the roommates, and Finn, and all of their lovers, except for Ari, because I don't think Ari's a part of that, or, no, he was there. Anyways, like, everyone goes to Dylan's mother's house, Helen's house. Finn and Dylan are also very protective of each other and literally always have hickeys. This is only important because the only thing that I really remember about that with them is that Pyra is trying to cover up all of Dylan's hickeys, and she's getting mad at Finn because Finn just keeps leaving more hickeys. So that's cute. So then they have Christmas. They like make the relationship official. They tell all the roommates. They don't tell Helen because Helen's a cunt. And then honestly, I don't really remember what happens. I think Helen at some point finds out during Christmas and, like, shits on both of them. And Dylan's like, I'm so sorry, babe. And Finn's like, I don't care. I was in a gang. Helen means nothing to me. I can kill her if you want. And Dylan's like, whoa, ayo, hello. And yeah, so they have, like, a nice little relationship. Oh, at one point, this might have been before Christmas. I don't think so. They're officially together, and Dylan gets captured by the gang, and Finn breaks up with him for, like, almost a year because he's like, I can't handle not having you in my life, and if you're dead. You know, I don't think I can live alone. I can live with, like, having broken up with you, but I cannot live without you in my life, because you're dead. And so Finn comes in, like, saves him, breaks up with him. They don't talk for a while, and then finally they reunite. They start sleeping together. It's going well. They get engaged. That's a diamond, if you couldn't tell. I wouldn't blame you if you couldn't. It kind of looks like a donut. They get engaged, and then something happens. I'll be honest, neither Jane nor I know what happens. And they break up again. Dylan now moves. Dylan, like, doesn't tell anyone that he's moving either, so everyone's just pissed off at Dylan. Dylan moves to California to live with Sam, because Sam has moved away at this point, and so he's living with Sam. Dylan doesn't contact, like, anyone, and then when he finally does contact people, he's engaged again. Oh, wait, let's get rid of this ring and make another one down here. Dylan, for the first time, like, he's kept up with Pyra and Kyle a little bit, but didn't tell them, like, anything. And so the first time that he reconnects with everyone, and also Sam's like, okay, psychopaths. Not really. Sam is more tame than that because he's letting him live with him, but he's like, what? Dylan is engaged to Sophie now because it's someone that his mother would approve of, and she's pregnant. And he comes back for the wedding because they're doing it in Oregon, and Finn shows up, obviously, because why wouldn't he? His love is getting married to someone else, so you have to show up. Sophie ends up losing the baby, drops contact with Dylan, and, like, goes back to Oregon. But Dylan loses his mind because, like, hardly any of his friends are talking with him because he, like, burnt all those bridges with that horrible thing that happened to him that none of us can remember. And so him and Finn are also, like, on the fritz, and then he, like, calls Finn and is like, this is, like, 6 months after Sophie left too, and, like, he's starting to mend relationships, but it's taking quite a lot of effort and time. And so Dylan calls Finn and is like, I can't do this anymore, I'm gonna jump off of a building, and Finn goes, again? Why do they all try to kill themselves by jumping off of a building? So Finn then comes and rescues Dylan, saves himself from, you know, killing himself. They reconnect, they re-fall in love over the course of, like, a year. They get engaged, they get married. This random guy, who I don't remember his name, but this random guy, like, custom builds them a house. They move in, they end up adopting this little boy. This is kind of on the fritz, if it's canon or not, but they end up adopting, I guess he's also not little, but they end up adopting this guy. They end up adopting this kid, Freddie, so now Freddie's tied into them. And again, this is, like, kind of quasi-canon, kind of quasi-fucking not, because they are also attached to Foynan, which is a subset of Finn. We don't talk about that. So Freddie and Gracie, which I deadass don't remember where Gracie ended up. Maybe she also ended up with them. Again, this is quasi-canon, so, like, technically this didn't happen, but also it did, like, enough to talk about it. Freddie, used to live with Foynan, and he, Foynan couldn't take care of him because, you know, he's also in a gang. Who the fuck is it? Oh, wait! So I actually missed a massive subset of this. I missed a massive subset of this before Dylan got married. Finn got captured from his house and was told that Dylan was dead and got taken back to his old gang in Chicago and basically went batshit, lost his mind. Also, part of Finn is that he hears voices in his head because is the voices of all the people he's killed because he's mentally deranged, and Dylan is the only person that can quiet those voices. So Finn ends up getting taken back to Chicago to, like, be with the gang, and he's like, I can't do this. He ends up dismantling the gang and killing the gang leader and putting his head on a stick, and that's how he dismembers it. And then he takes these other people. Hold on, let's just continue to cover that up. He takes these other people. Okay, hold on. I'm not even going to write them down. We're not going to talk about them this time. We'll do another episode where we talk about them. Okay, so Finn brings these other people, Everett, Coda, Val, Kit, and Rue, and Wes, back with him. And then he still thinks that Dylan is dead, and then they get reunited, and boom, no longer dead. I can't believe I forgot about that. But yeah, that happens, and then the whole other crime boys are a part of it. Maybe I'll talk about that tonight because I have nothing else to do. Anyways, let's go back to Freddy. Freddy is like 14 or so, 15, 16, I don't know, but he is severely traumatized for some reason. So half the time he has a little mental disorder where he acts and has the cognitive function of a child, like a 3-year-old or something. And yeah, so, and also, because he's traumatized, not because he's traumatized, also with Freddy, is that he can speak to the dead, except, when you have the cognitive functions of a 3-year-old half the time, you don't really understand how that works, so they end up having to, like, team up with Sam to, like, figure all this out, and Freddy's cute, love Freddy, but yeah, that's pretty much all of it. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.